Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Ward. I am the founder and CEO of Ophthalmology and also community builder and residence for Michigan Central. We are here at the Detroit Founders Roundtable with incredible ecosystem leaders and founders, and we're going to chit chat. We're going to talk about all things technology, innovation, and how we are building an ecosystem from the ground up. So I have with me here today Anna of Airspace Link.
Anna Helander, I'm a co-founder and VP of Strategic Growth here at Airspace Link, where you guys can look at us as the air traffic control for drones and the infrastructure and software systems to make flying a drone safe in the United States.
My name is Alban Dersi. I'm the co-founder of Involt. We bring intelligence to robots. We're a team of 50 people based here in Detroit, Paris, and France, and Tokyo, Japan.
Justine Johnson, Chief Mobility Officer for the state of Michigan, and I lead the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. Essentially, we're a one-stop shop for all things mobility in the state of Michigan.
My name is Asha Jones. I am a CEO and co-founder of TripSlip. We make field trips easy by replacing paper with a digital integrated platform that allows all paper to be removed from a process, whether it's permission slip, paper check, or money.
So, Anna, you are the co-founder of Airspace Link. You are leading drone technology. You are doing public-private partnerships. And essentially, you are one of the first startups here on Michigan Central's campus. So tell me more about the startup, your role as a leader, and how you all are evolving in Detroit.
I'd be glad to. So we started here in a different location off Library Street. And as our company grew, we saw this opportunity to move here in Newlab. And I actually let my employees decide whether they would want to move here or not. And after they saw the space, they were like, oh, yeah, let's. So, it's been life-changing. So as a co-founder, and now I'm basically VP of Strategic Growth. So I'm taking it on myself to really land and expand our business right now.
Wow, incredible. So from when you started, how long has it been?
I would say we're going on about 6 to 7 years right now from when we started Airspace Link. So it was just 3 of us, and now we're over 50 employees. So
Wow, all working out of here at Newlab.
not all, okay, but most, and that's our goal. We're very heavily focused on local talent, but when we initially started, we just kind of used our network. So we do have a few employees that live out of state.
Awesome. So tell me a little bit more about how Airspace Link is changing the great game for drone technology.
Yeah, I would say to simply put it, is we are the air traffic control system for drones. So we worked very heavily with the FAA to become a certified partner. So when a drone pilot, whether it be from a public, commercial partner or public safety, local here, they would use a system like ours to get authorization to fly legally, more safely. And then it is now starting to branch out to be able to deconflict flights. So when public safety and Amazon are using the same airspace, they use a system like ours to be able to deconflict. That way, if a public safety has an emergency, Amazon, for example, will stand down or they'll fly at a different flight height. So using our system, that kind of takes all of that into one software.
Wow, so technology, aviation, innovation, right?
That's a lot.
You're co-founder and you're spearheading these industries.
Yeah, me with an amazing group of people that we've been able to procure here in the state of Michigan and beyond. I would say Michael is the visionary. I'm the relationship builder, and Danny, our CTO, is the genius behind the product and the engineering. So I think the 3 of us together have worked really well to expand our footprint, not just here in Michigan, but now we're all over the world and we're expanding out.
That's huge, Anna. Congratulations. So you said the state of Michigan. I'm going to shift it over to Justine. Justine, you are Michigan's Chief Mobility Officer. Tell us more about that role, how it started, and what you do on a day-to-day.
Yeah, so great question, and thanks so much for having me here and just being able to share space with such amazing women. Chief Mobility Officer for the state of Michigan. The actual office is called the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification. That office was created by Governor Whitmer in 2020. And it's the first of its kind in the United States. So the goal is really to focus on really moving people, moving goods, moving information across land, water, and air. And also, we have a coordinating function across state government as well. So I work very closely with folks at LEO, which stands for Labor and Economic Opportunity, on all things workforce. I work very closely with our sustainability department, which is called EAGLE, Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy, on all things carbon neutrality and how the transportation sector can contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Of course, Michigan Economic Development Corporation, where the office is housed, and that is really thinking about the economics of these particular industries that are emerging, like aerospace links work within aviation. So that's something that's really important. A fourth of our state's gross domestic product comes from the automotive sector. So we want to continue to see that being in place, but also how we can grow those numbers. So that's something that's really important. And lastly, Department of Transportation. And so as we think about our roads and our infrastructure, making sure that we're thinking about what the future of that infrastructure looks like. How do we future proof our roadways? Will the road typically be a road of what we experience today, or will we look up in the sky and is that the new skyway of the future? So it's all these parts and components that really make this office very unique and is really the secret sauce of Michigan.
Wow. So when it comes to Michigan, what makes us different from everyone else?
As someone who made a choice to move to Michigan for this particular opportunity, I have a deep appreciation for the state of Michigan. And I say that because, Michigan is a state that has this beautiful history when we talk about innovation, and not just only automotive, but innovation broadly speaking. And I'm just going to give just a few nuggets around the automotive sector. We think about lane markings that was created in the state of Michigan. We think about the three-way traffic signal that was created by a police officer. The four-way traffic signal that you see, that is essentially created by a Detroit City police officer, William Potts. Like, you think about all these people. Of course, you can't talk about the automotive industry without acknowledging Henry Ford's role and really taking the assembly line and taking it to the next level and mass producing cars. And when you think about that, has changed the game for the world, for how we move. We've been moving essentially off of this idea of creating a vehicle that was affordable and accessible for the last 120 something years now.
Yeah.
It all started in Michigan. And like, that is so unique. That story is not the case across the United States and world. It's unique to this state.
Wow. You're giving us a history lesson right now. Thank you for that. And so we're talking about the history. I want to talk a little bit about also the foundation of entrepreneurship because Asha, you have been a part of the fabric and the foundation for over a decade, and you have conceptualized an amazing company, TripSlip. So tell us more about the why you decided to be a founder.
I decided to be a founder almost accidentally. Started off as a hustle. Was selling food as I went through a divorce almost 20 years ago. So 2007 is when I cut my teeth as an entrepreneur. I was a single mom coming out of my divorce, and I just wanted to find a way to make some extra money. But as Detroiters do, we see opportunities in different things. And so on my food journey, I decided what would be cooler than a food truck? What would be more efficient than a food truck? A bus, a restaurant, if you will. So started moving towards this concept of creating this restaurant. So I said, if nobody else can drive my bus, I should know how. So I got a commercial driver's license. Fast forward, ended up, because of my background in sales, ran a transportation company for a once really popular tourism transportation company. But I ended up at the Detroit Historical Museum. And it was there that I saw that there were a number of students who were missing out on free field trip experiences because they didn't have signed permission slips. And I'm like, this is something that needs to be solved. So we created TripSlip to actually solve the problem. So we don't charge anything for anyone who wants to create a TripSlip because we actually want to solve the problem. So it's free for anyone, for any teacher, coach, or any sort of person who wants to organize a group activity to create a permission slip that's free. And that comes from being in a place where opportunities exist, but access to those opportunities can be limited. And so one of the things that we do at TripSlip, in addition to paperless permission slips, is make certain that people have access to transportation. So school buses, sometimes charter buses, but making sure that those barriers to get to these experiential learning experiences are not held up because of paper or lack of a bus.
Yeah. And you're hitting an intersection of mobility and community, and you've, in a sense, defined your own pathway. What has that felt like for you?
It's interesting because I would have never seen myself doing anything with school buses now. But now it's hard to separate it from any other aspect of my life because it's all that I see. Like, I've always been a car girly, but if I see a car on the road, it's a bus I'm looking at. I'm not looking at a car.
Love it.
And so for me, that intersectionality is service, is leadership. Like Detroit, up until, the last however many years that we've gotten cute, has had to get it how we live in a lot of ways. We have to be innovative. We have to sort of tie things together and make things work because the infrastructure, the support, the money wasn't always necessarily there. So now that we do have these things, we're taking all of it and we're doing all that we can to make sure that we don't miss out on what's happening, that the students, the organizations that we support understand that there's access, there's capital, there's funding, there's support in all the things that we're doing because a lot of times people just don't know. And so we want to make sure that the information is there, and that people know that there's somebody who's advocating for them on that side.
For sure. And I think you're also proof like what you put out into the community, you also get back. Asha, you hit on some very valid points and also pillars of Detroit. And what I love about Detroit is that we are an ecosystem that welcomes everyone. And we have someone who's a native from France, right? And so, Alden, you have decided to move your startup here to Detroit and you are in robotics. So tell us more about your startup.
Sure. So I co-founded Inbolt back in France a few years ago, and we do AI. And so basically, we're bringing intelligence and brains and vision to industrial robots, the kind of robots that you see in the manufacturing industry, and most specifically on the automotive lines. So when we started attacking and approaching the American market, it was very clear from the get-go that we had to be in Detroit. It's a unique position that Detroit has in the world. I have never seen such a large concentration of manufacturing in the automotive industry. Like the number of plants just in the city of Detroit is crazy. There's nowhere else in the world where that's possible. So for us, going to Detroit it wasn't a choice. Like it wasn't a choice between Detroit and New York. It has been Detroit from the beginning. But we were not sure about the kind of like infrastructure we would have access to as a startup. And I remember I just reached out to Newlab one day and I managed to score a visit the same day and book the space as soon as I saw it. Because for us, it was the perfect place to feel at home in a way, in a very like startup environment within a city that we didn't know and really attract the right talents to move to Detroit to really accompany the growth.
Wow, incredible. And when did that move take place for you?
So we created our American subsidiary, I would say a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we've been here since the beginning.
And you hit the ground running.
And we did hit the ground running. We already had a few customers interested. So we were customers that we are already working with and still working with GM, Ford, Chrysler. I was at Chrysler Stellantis just this morning touring one of our factories. So yeah, we're basically spending our lives in safety shoes and yellow jackets, wearing safety glasses. And if you see people around the building, that's like most likely yes.
I love it. I love it. I feel so grateful to be amongst such brilliant women. And something here in Detroit, we're known for taking the mask off, right? Like we keep it real, we tell the truth, we have a sense of sisterhood. So let's take off the mask. Let's talk about our really challenging moments that ended up as a win, right? But you didn't know that it was a win when you initially started. That may be starting the company, making your first hires, walking into leadership, expanding teams. So we'll start with Asha. Asha, what has been one of the most challenging aspects of the founder journey for you? And, how did that evolve into like a winning moment?
I would say one of the most challenging aspects of the founder journey has been trying to figure out a balance, not necessarily work life balance. I'm a mom, but the balance of where do I put my focus? What's on fire today versus being able to prioritize and to plan? Because when you're starting off, your team is lean. Sometimes you're a team of one. And so the challenge was, how do I? The lesson has come out of that for me is it's not how, it's who. Because as entrepreneurs, we'll try to say to ourselves, well, here's this problem. How do I solve it? Who do I know that can solve it? So that shift has been a win for me to be able to say, there's somebody else that's done this particular thing and has probably done it very well. Who is that person? So discovering, instead of how do I do this, getting the network of people who have unmasked, who are willing to share the challenges that they have, and being able to get into a room and figure out, wait a minute, we can help solve each other's problems. That has become a huge win because asking who, not how, helps us to accelerate and to go a lot faster.
Dropping gems, especially in an ecosystem like ours, where we're building from the ground up. We're not a Silicon Valley, but we're our own type of ecosystem, and our wealth is in the people, right? So, what about you, Justine?
This is such a great question. And I say that because, as I mentioned before, I moved to Detroit from Los Angeles, California. And so when I started the role, mobility, the term mobility, I think most people would come up to me and they'd say, hey, I work in the automotive. I could talk to you all about EVs. And I would say, that's great, right? And I'd love to hear more, right? And for me, the definition of mobility wasn't just only about cars. It was about maritime. We're surrounded by 22% of the world's fresh water. We can't miss the maritime opportunity. It also included aviation. It included what the future of movement looks like in the air. So it was a matter of creating a definition that everyone could see themselves in when we use the term mobility. And in the beginning, it wasn't easy. In the beginning, it was very hard to get out of a framework of like, we're known as the big three and that's it,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, yes, I love this. And there's so much more here. Like, there's so much more on the table. So I think that was a challenge, but turned into an opportunity to help us to reframe and really shape what we think the future is going to look like, including all the dimensions, land, water, and air. And I'd say the other piece that's been challenging is I love starting stuff that's new. I love giving it a try. I'm like,
Yeah.
let's do it. Let's try it.
Yes.
And with that also means that I don't have a budget that is, just flowing. I don't have money just flowing out of my pockets all day long. And so I meet different people, different companies, great ideas. I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to do that.
Yeah.
But you have to actually work within the confines of a budget. And that's hard, right? Across the whole entire state. I can't just only have a conversation about Detroit. I am looking at the whole state of Michigan. And so I have to be very thoughtful and very intentional about where we are spending our funds and making sure that it's done equitably across the state. And so it's been challenging because I just wish there was more money, right? Like, give me more so we can keep going.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
but I think we've made the best that we can with what budget we have. I think that's just one of the great things about women. You give us a budget and we'll figure something out even when the numbers don't make sense. We're like, we're going to cut it up in a way that's going to have the best interest for all of us in the future. So that's essentially what I put on as my lens every day of just like, I got to do this and we'll make some tough decisions. It's not to say that there are bad ideas. It's just there's infinite resources or there's not infinite resources. So I have to be very thoughtful about money.
For sure. And also, Justine, I see you walking through the halls and, I see you in the MEDC suite. Has there been more activity because the state of Michigan is here at Michigan Central? Have you been able to see more pilots, faster productivity in terms of partnerships happening?
Oh yeah, completely. One of the great things about being here, of course, around this building at Michigan Central and at Newlab, we do have an innovation district. So essentially, you see lots of mobility innovators who are coming with new ideas, whether that's someone who has a robotics company like yourself to someone like TripSlip, where I feel like I'm always having these strategic collisions all day long. And I'm like, that was inspiring. Let's do this. So we are seeing more pilots, of course, in this particular area. We are located in a transportation innovation zone. So these are companies who are looking to deploy solutions within the city of Detroit, getting that fast tracking to actually deploy those pilots here. And lastly, we do have the first public wireless charging roadway in the United States, which is right outside this door.
Yeah.
And so that's something that, of course, having an ecosystem like this, naturally, you're going to put that type of innovation to be on display, but also to be piloted and used by a number of different companies as well.
For sure. And something like that takes numerous partners. So, yeah, in the private sector, the public sector.
Oh, yeah. This is not the public sector makes a decision. This requires, a lot of time there is no playbook. When you're the first in the United States to do something. There is no, playbook where we can say another state did it. This is how they did it. We had to bring private sector actors together, City of Detroit, State of Michigan, utility providers. Sometimes you're asking really, really tough questions. And sometimes a lot of folks in the room just don't have an answer, but you're having a commitment and willingness to try and to be creative and say, we're going to be people who lean into innovation and we're going to be fast adopters. So let's do it. So it's a let's do it attitude.
Yeah.
That I think is what's unique about the state, that I feel like a lot of folks are like, let's just try it.
And that's what innovation is, right? And I love that we're creating the infrastructure of innovation here right now, day by day, minute by minute. So, Alvin, tell me more about what your challenges have been and how that has evolved into a win.
Yeah, so the industry that we work in is a very tough industry. Automotive manufacturing, they're the worst or the best. It depends how you want to see it. The toughest customers you can have.
Yeah.
You cannot stop a line. Like this is really productivity is everything for them. So we did have, especially when we started out doing some installs on robots with our system. Of course, there's always something that goes wrong, and it was all about managing these customers, managing the team, being put in really tough positions. Um, just a fun fact: on my wedding day back in France, we crashed a robot, and a customer called me twice. Luckily, I didn't have my phone, but both of my associates were there, and one had to fly back to Detroit the day after. So it was putting ourselves and taking responsibility for things going wrong, and that's something that I've had to do from the beginning, taking responsibility with the customer, but also with the team. And from all these experiences and doing the toughest job we could ever do, often in the toughest hours, because the only time you can work on a robot is at night. We definitely became, I think, way bigger and way smarter and way more efficient now.
Wow, that's incredible. And so, with your robotics, what does it particularly do?
Yeah. So if you think about it, robotics, a robot is just it's a blind machine. It's always designed to do the same thing the same way every day. So if you have anything that changes in its environment, let's say the part shifting 2 millimeter on the side, the robot is not able to adapt and will ultimately crash into the part or just stop. What we're adding with our intelligence to the robot by adding a vision sensor and then some AI is enabling the robot to process and to see its environment so that they can adapt their trajectory dynamically. The second thing that we're also enabling is because we can do what we do, all this guidance of the robot, we do it in real time, which means we can work in what we call dynamic environments. And one of the most dynamic environment that you can find in manufacturing is the continuous moving line. Continuous moving line is the Ford's invention. Is impossible to automate unless you have what we're building, what we're creating, which means basically giving real-time intelligence to our robots. So the main goal of most of the big three here in the area is to produce, I would say, cost-effective car, and that's what we are enabling with our system.
Wow, incredible. Last question, because I'm really, really curious. You're building in Detroit right now. You have customers. Where do you see Inbolt in the next 10 years?
No, that's a good question. So our main office for R&D is in Paris, France. We have an office in Detroit. We also just launched an office in Japan and Tokyo. So really right now where we're seeing Inbolt is on the geographical expansion. To target our customers, we need to be local and next to the factories. So the next offices will probably still be in Asia, but also we just recently hired someone from Mexico and South America, which is a huge market. So really geographical expansion, and then also it's just making vision just ubiquitous on every robot. If you think about it, people have been spending billions into making cars smarter, but the road is such a dangerous environment, whereas a factory is a constrained environment. So ultimately, it's easier to make robots smarter, and the goal for us is really to have 100% all the robots of the world with our vision system and our intelligence side, because it's possible.
Wow. There's nothing I love more than women speaking technology. Truly. And I know that resonates for you too, Anna. So tell me more about Airspace Link and what the evolution has been in building here in Detroit.
Yeah. So just to kind of reiterate what everyone's saying, it's very challenging as a startup to know what lane to be in. You're pulled where Michael and I have a deep knowledge of state and local government. But then you have the commercial side and now technology is heavily focused on defense. So as a company, the challenge has been where to put our time and our effort, and being able to adapt and shift quickly. That's what the startup ecosystem is all about. And I would say, in full transparency, we haven't always chosen the perfect path, but I think that's where growth comes and learning. And that's where also success comes, because the ability to have a few big wins in state and local government then allowed us to have the funds to then hire top tier sales talent to then go tackle the commercial side. And then the ability to say no, the ability to turn down possible opportunities that didn't fit our vision or didn't fit where we were as a company at the time, which can be difficult because you can see where it could be an amazing win. But having the ability to say no and stay on track with what you're hoping for or where your vision is, I would say as Airspace Link, we've hit some bumps, but we've also made some true strides this year. And I feel like this year is the inflection point from a state side with Justine and MEDC and the state of Michigan. They've been a tremendous asset for us. We did not have to be in Detroit. We chose Detroit.
Wow.
We chose it because of the vitality, the resurgence. We saw young people walking the streets, and we were excited about being able to hire locally. And being born and raised here, it was tremendous, something that hit me very personal, that I was able to start a business in Detroit. So while we are still growing, we are expanding. I don't know that we'll leave here. I don't see that in my tenure.
Yeah.
I'm grounded here.
Yeah.
And the network that Newlab has provided, the connections, the opportunities that Newlab has given us. I'm so glad we left Library Street. I didn't think I'd want to leave.
Yeah.
Being 2 doors down from Gucci, I was like, this is my people. I'm sure. Okay. But coming to Newlab has been a game changer for Airspace Link.
For sure. Wow, that's incredible to hear. And also, everyone, it's Women's Month. You all are dominating your lanes, and that is something to be so proud about. So, Anna, as you are talking about the expansion and how you all have grown, how do you show up as a leader? Like, what has been your superpower in driving Airspace Link to get it to where it needs to be?
I always tell my team, what is your genius? And if you wake up and you get to do your genius every day, something you're passionate about, I think not only does the company get successful, we have happy employees if they get to do what they love. And I get to do what I love, and that is building relationships with people. And so my strategic growth this year has been building deeper relationships with state and local government. And I sit with mayors, and I sit with city council, and I sit with public safety almost every day. And the trust that Airspace Link has earned over the last 6 years with a lot of state and local governments, not just in Michigan, but throughout the United States, I think has given us the leeway,
Yeah.
the growth that we were wanting. And that also allows our team now to focus on what their genius is, which is we have someone that's managing our defense now. We have someone that's really doing amazing work in our commercial side. So I think being able to do what you love and what you're good at has been what's made us last this long. And now we're just seeing growth everywhere we go.
Wow, that is beautiful. What about you, Asha?
My superpower has been seeing the things that other people overlook. Like when you think about the fact that when we were children, the same process, I don't know how it is in France, but the same process to get a kid on a field trip in 2026 is the same process that it was in 1926. The process is as old as the school bus itself. That's insane. And I think for me, it's been because I had experience running a transportation company, working at a museum, being a mom, which makes me a professional chaperone, but also being a school bus driver. I have over 3 million commercial miles that I've driven on school buses. So tens of thousands of trips, thousands and thousands of hours on the road. And being able to tie all of those needs together, and also not being afraid to buck what other people think. It's amazing that when you start a company, people who had no interest in it have all kinds of opinions about how you should run said company. So one of the things that we're working on now is we're building a bus. It's something that I did working for the previous transportation company. It's something I've talked about for a long time, but it's Women's History Month. Quinta Brunson, Abbott Elementary, we all know the show and love it. She started a field trip fund in Philadelphia and has challenged other cities to do the same. So, what is Detroit's response to something like that? We're going to build a bus and we're going to make field trips free for every kid that needs to go on a field trip, 100% free. Now, our company can't afford to pay for that service, so we leverage that through the business relationships and people who need to charter a bus. So you mix the passion that I have for the students and the experiential learning and safe transportation, but also with the relationships and the social capital that being an entrepreneur for almost 20 years in Detroit has brought me. So to be able to go to the businesses and say, hey, don't you want to support this effort that we're doing that's ultimately going to make sure that these Detroit kids aren't missing out on these experiences? And the answer has been yes every single time. Because for Detroit Public Schools, there's a 4-month process to get a field trip approved. But if there's an event, it may not have a 4-month window. So to be able to say there's an event in 6 weeks and these kids need a bus, we got you covered. Get on our calendar. We'll take care of it. So I think that the ability to be not only innovative, but unafraid to stand 10 toes down on the thing that you think is going to be best for the trajectory of your customers and your company is my superpower, because people will have all kinds of opinions about how you should do something, but we know because we're the people who decided to solve the problem.
And you said 10 toes down. That defines you to a T because you and I, almost a decade ago, took a venture capital accelerator, G Beta, with Stella Safari, and you stuck with it. And now I see you left and right, winning pitch competitions, entrepreneur in residence for University of Michigan. And what can you say to those founders who are struggling right now? It's hard. We fail. Like, what can you tell them?
It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. Like you go to the gym, 50 pounds is 50 pounds. But your capacity to lift the 50 pounds, if you keep going to the gym, gets easier. The weight does not get lighter. So we have to trust that you're going to be strong enough if you keep going. We lose because we stop trying. That's how you fail ultimately. There are failures throughout the day in business, but if you understand how to frame them right, it's not a failure, it's a lesson. Win or learn. So if you see those so-called failures as a lesson, like then you can reshape how that sort of feels. Like I don't want this feeling again. I don't want to feel like this again. But this is something that I bought this lesson. So I think that it's important to trust yourself even when you fail or even when you lose or even when somebody tells you something contrary to what you feel. Like everybody has that something inside of them that says, "Man, something told me not to go this way. Something told me." That something told me is your you who knows. Listen to that voice. That voice will never steer you wrong.
Wow. Gems. Thanks, Asha. Justine, what about you? What is your superpower in the work that you do? Not just the work, life as a whole. We're not just living to work.
Yeah. I think for me, it's my lived experience. And I always tell people, I am a child of immigrant parents. So my mom immigrated here from Jamaica. So I understand firsthand what it means to ride public transportation as small as a baby can fit in a pouch. Like my first friends were people who were on the bus. And so are my mother's friends to this day are people who we rode the bus with. So that experience is something that has always been with me. I grew up as a latchkey kid, so essentially I knew how to let myself in and turn certain lights on and warm up your food and have a seat and get your homework done.
Yeah.
So I knew those things and I know what that experience is like, the small child who's crossing the street and maybe a large boulevard where the cars are sometimes taller than you. How you have to look at the driver, how you have to look left and right before you even step into the street, making eye contact. Like that experience is with me when we think about mobility possibilities and future, right? Is that we're building for the smallest height, the youngest height, and we're also building for the oldest height and need as well. And again, different abilities, whether someone has a disability, whether they don't. And again, there are temporary disabilities that most people think disabled means one thing. And like throughout a lifetime, someone can have temporary disabilities, right? And so that hinders the way in which they move. And so how do we start to think about our built environment that is mindful of the lived experience and not from one gender and not from, an able-bodied person, but how do we bring all of those different perspectives so that we can ensure the best outcomes? And we think about safety, which is something that's important. And it's hard, every time we see stats around the number of deaths that happen on roadways every single year, like it is chilling, right? It's like 40,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a hard number to make peace with or to sleep at night. And so I think about how do we get those numbers down, but how do we actually address a lot of the wrongs of our infrastructure and our built environment that has put us here in the first place? And so I think for me, that lived experience, I'm always looking around, how can we improve? How can we get better? I don't look at the built environment and say like, oh, it's perfect because we put a wireless charging roadway there. That's great, but how do we start to even take it to the next notch and make sure that it's safe for all? So that lived experience is what guides me as a person, as a professional, and how I make decisions, how I think about policy, and how I approach the work day in and day out.
Wow, incredible perspective. And also with the lived experience, it's sounding to me that that enhances you putting humans first instead of taking it on, this is my title, these are my responsibilities. You're saying, hey, I went through these are certain things I went through in my real life. And these are things that I feel that should be changed.
Yeah, absolutely. The humans come first. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a shiny object that is moving you, whether that's a car, a scooter, a plane, it's that. But the mechanism, your experience around everything else, your mobility journey starts the minute you open the door to go to somewhere. Whether that's opening the door, can you get to your sidewalk? If you can't get to your sidewalk, then yeah, you don't have a mobility journey that's fair. Do you have street lights? So when you're walking on the street as women maybe at nighttime, do you feel safe?
Yeah.
Your perception of safety. Do you sense like I don't feel comfortable walking down a street where there are no street lights?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I get a car? Can a car actually pull up to the curb? Are there curb cuts that allow someone who's in a wheelchair to successfully go from curb to vehicle? They don't have that, then we're not helping their mobility journey. So it's all of those parts and pieces.
Wow. Well, I can say this, Justine. I was born and raised here in Detroit. I've been here all of my life. I decided to build my company here. And I can truly say that I feel that our community is moving together. Yes. And I'm just so proud of what you and the rest of our ecosystem leaders have done. So, Albain, for you, like, you are leading engineers, you're leading innovation. It's complex, it's dynamic. So tell us what's your superpower.
I don't take too much time to think. And then I do first and then I learn. I hate it when people put in place processes before we actually do the job. So it's just about like a lot of like I think a lot of my job, especially not coming from an engineering background, it's been always asking a lot of questions to really understand our customers' problems. And from the very beginning, I've just been reaching out to tons and tons and tons of people and not thinking before I do it and really learning on the fly.
Wow. No, not waiting.
No, 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 not waiting. I know like a lot of people want to say like I want to take that class before starting, or I need to learn that, I need to know that. I always think it's always better to learn from someone who knows and to just ask a lot of questions and to be not hesitating to ask stupid questions as well.
Yeah.
To really understand and to really understand the problem that you are trying to solve. So yeah, so I think my superpower is just to get out there and then figure it out.
Wow. Incredible. So this next one, you all, feel free to lead it. It's all about who's responsible for getting women access to technology. Do we take it on? Does our government? Does corporations like Ford? Is it a collective effort? Like, if we could just all share our perspective.
So I would say it goes back to what you said about community. I've lived here my whole life, lifelong and intentional Detroiter. Went to college in the late 90s and came home in the early aughts when everybody else was leaving or not coming home from college. And to see how our community stuck together even in those tough times, I feel like that was the foundation for what allowed us to have this renaissance that we're experiencing. But I remember the first time that I read about Justine Johnson. It was in Cranes, and I was like, wow, she left LA to come to Michigan. We got something going on. But then I was walking on the third floor one day and I had on the Trip Slip shirt, and someone says, I like your shirt. And I said, thank you. And they said, you do something with transportation. And she said, I said, you're Justine Johnson. I just read about you. And so the fact that the community that exists in a place like Newlab really is a microcosm of what you see in the city as a whole, and in not just the city, but the whole state. We're seeing connectivity now to the west side of the state that we didn't see before. Interest between both sides of the state playing together. And being almost 50, there was a time where we were beefed out with them. Like Grand Rapids didn't rock with Detroit and we was okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so to see that there is an intentionality now that exists to make sure that Detroit and Ann Arbor are connected to one another, when Ann Arbor is, right there, but always felt a little inaccessible. So I think the community aspect is really what is helping our city and our state to be able to work together. And people feel that. Like, you knew that you needed to come to Detroit, but coming to Detroit and experiencing this, maybe that helped you to make the decision a little easier, you know?
I mean, I think if we were to talk about like whose responsibility is it for us to think about the role of opening the door for other women, I think it's all of us at this table, right? And I think beyond this, and I say table here, a tangible table, but it's the tables around us that we get to sit at. And I think about how can we show up as a mentor, as a person who is removing the ceiling. If you're in a position to hire, no, and I mean, all of you all are in positions to hire. How do you start to say, okay, if we look at our demographics of what we have in our company, are we, leaning more towards men versus women? And not to say we're talking about skill set versus a difference in skill set, but like, are we really thinking about how we bring up the next group who's going to be able to take the torch and take it further? And sometimes we do have to bring in young minds, and they may, have their ego, and they come in hot, and they're confident they can solve all the problems. I love hearing when a young person's like, I can figure that out. I'm like, great, tell me. And giving them the space to have confidence, because I think for far too long, I think a lot of the older generations may have dimmed the light whenever young folks come in a room with, I have a list of things that I'm ready to do. And there's a time and place. I always tell people TAP is a time and place acronym that I use. There's a time and place when you can have that conversation.
Yes.
Not in a group setting where we're, talking business. You don't show up with, here's my 10-point plan.
Yes.
And everybody fall in line. But if you have a relationship with your manager, your team, how do we start to move the agenda forward? So I think it's about creating space for younger folks to be at the table.
Yeah.
If anyone knows me, knows that I love, love, love working with youth. Like,
Yeah.
sign me up. I'm there. I'm going to show up. And I think it's important for them to see us, right? For them to see we're at a table of all women, right? And just like, oh, I can be a woman who's in tech. I can be a woman who's a government leader. I can be a woman who is in VC, who's giving money to folks. They need to see all of it, right? They need to see all the aspects of what women can do rather than maybe what TV or social media has said this is the role of women, because we don't have to live in that box anymore. So the more that they get to see us, they hear our stories, the more that we take the mask off and we're transparent. Like, I'm sure everyone has a story about when they walked in a room and they literally were the only woman in the room. We had that experience literally on Monday, right? Where it was just us two at a table of all men. And it's, how do you feel in that moment? So how do you overcome some of those things? And I think it's our responsibility to tell young girls, and as well as those who are coming up behind us, how you can overcome, how you can still be very successful. You don't have to minimize or shrink yourself.
I got chills.
I was going to say that's where I think Newlab too has been a huge curator for youth. We've had Code 313 come in, and there's these drone contests, and these parents at first were like, what's this drone? But then gamers become the best drone pilots. And we had, I think it was like an 18 or 19-year-old student that had come here, got his drone pilot license, and he was the one that delivered drone nuts to Mayor Duggan, a donut delivery, but he got paid for it. And it just becomes a whole different ecosystem of economic development opportunities for kids and a different way of thinking about career paths. And I would say, as a founder, what has been amazing for me is not just the women-led growth that has happened in our company, but like you said, the youth. Hiring young people who have totally different perspectives, totally different mindset than what maybe our older generation as Xers have has been an amazing opportunity for me to mentor, but also I learn from them.
Yes.
They learn from me and my old school OG ways, but then I learn from them in a way that I think is what has made us kind of get to that next level. So I would say as a woman, I've tried not to limit myself. And I would say to every woman that I'm sitting with at this table, I can see that none of you have limited yourself.
Sure.
And that makes me work even harder to raise the ceiling for myself. So I'm just in honor of sitting with you guys today. It's been really cool.
Likewise. And also, I think we're also all hybrids in a sense of we're both new school and old school. Right? Like you have to intermix those things, especially to speak to all generations. And if more people embrace being old school and new school, I think we'll have more cross collaboration amongst generations. But yeah, I think that New Lab has been a beacon
Absolutely.
of showcasing that.
Yeah. We have the first drone helipad in the state of Michigan, right? I mean, that has brought kids, it's brought technology partners, it's brought drone companies, it's brought commercial partners, cities, states. They come here to visit our site. And I think that has been a part of MEDC, the state, New Lab, Ford, all of us working together. And it's just starting to expand out. And I can't imagine doing that anywhere else where we would have had that.
For sure. And last thing about you all, when it comes to mentorship, advisory, something that I've seen, you all are not passive or meek when it comes to that. You really grab it. If someone needs mentorship, I remember your team coming out to host a workshop for our female founder school, and it was no question. It was like, yes, we're doing this. Asha, you're advising, you are hosting, you are creating pilots amongst private partnerships, right? So, Justine, we've sat on panels, right? You're on the floor here working on the hard tech. And so it's all of us assuming the position and not expecting for someone to say, hey, here, come take it. It's like, no, it's ours.
Yeah. We had to build it, right? Detroit had to rebuild. And so I think us Detroiters, maybe the people that were born here, right? We've rebuilt how many times? And so we just keep rebuilding. And if we get knocked down, we get right back up, right? We hustle harder, they say.
Yes.
And I feel like that's where the success comes is when you're really willing to hustle hard and hit the challenges, hit the problems, make mistakes, pivot fast, go here, travel all the time, maybe sacrifice a little bit. I feel like we've had to sacrifice a lot, both personally and professionally, to get us to this point. And I'm so grateful that I've had a partner in life and at work that has been willing to sacrifice with me. So,
So incredible. The purpose journey.
yeah.
Yes, yes. Well, ladies, this has been a wonderful roundtable. Happy Women's Month to you all, and looking forward to supporting each other more and growing and scaling.